The night it all started, I wasn't supposed to be home. That was the first thing. If I had followed my usual routine, if I had gone out with my coworkers for a drink like I told her I would, I never would have known. I never would have heard it. But something felt off that day. A pressure in my chest that I couldn't shake. An unease that kept gnawing at me. I left the bar early, told the guys I wasn't feeling great, and drove home without thinking much of it. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, but Emily's car was there. That wasn't strange. She liked to turn off most of the lights when she was watching TV. What was strange was the fact that the front door was unlocked. I stepped inside, letting my eyes adjust to the dimness. The living room was empty, the kitchen untouched. No sound from the TV, no rustling in the hallway. But there was something else, something so small that I almost missed it. A whisper, barely a sound at all, just the faintest murmur coming from somewhere deeper in the house. I stood still, heart hammering, and then I heard it again. A voice, low, careful, not hers. The sound came from the back of the house, our bedroom. For a second, I didn't move. My brain refused to process what my ears were picking up. I told myself I was wrong, that it was the TV left on low, that she was on a call with a friend. But then there was another noise, a rustle, the unmistakable shuffle of feet moving quickly. Every muscle in my body locked up. I walked down the hall slowly, not because I was trying to be quiet, but because my legs felt heavy, unsteady, as if they knew what was waiting for me before my mind did. The bedroom door was slightly open. Pushed it, and there she was, Emily, standing in the middle of the room, her face pale, her hands clutching the edge of the bed. She wasn't alone. He was there too. And here's the part one still can't wrap my head around, the part that doesn't fit into any of the stories I've heard before. It wasn't some stranger. It wasn't her coworker, her gym trainer, or some mysterious guy I had never met. It was Jason, my best friend, my brother in everything but blood, the guy who had been in my life since I was 16. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair a mess. He didn't look guilty. He didn't look surprised. He just stood there, watching me, waiting to see what I would do. Emily was the first to speak. Not an apology. Not an explanation. She just sighed, like I had walked in at the worst possible moment and ruined her night. For a moment, I couldn't move. My brain refused to make sense of what I was seeing. Jason, the guy who had been at my wedding, who had toasted to our future, who had crashed on our couch more times than I could count. Emily wasn't even trying to cover herself up. Not that she needed to. She wasn't undressed. But her hair was tousled, her cheeks were flushed, and the way she was gripping the bedsheet told me everything I needed to know. Jason, he just ran a hand through his hair and exhaled, like he was annoyed I was here. The rage hit me so fast it blurred my vision. My stomach twisted violently, but I didn't let myself react. Not yet. I was still frozen at the threshold, watching them, waiting for something, anything that would make this make sense. Emily finally broke the silence. You weren't supposed to be home. Not I'm sorry. Not this isn't what it looks like. Just that flat, emotionless statement. Like I was the one in the wrong. I took a step forward. What the hell is this? My voice came out steadier than I felt. Emily let out a sharp breath and rolled her eyes. What does it look like? Jason didn't say a word. He just stood there, jaw clenched, watching me like he was trying to gauge how bad this was going to get. Like he was prepared for this moment. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't some one-time, heat-of-the-moment thing. This was something planned. Something that had been happening for a while. I laughed. Couldn't help it. A sharp, bitter sound ripped from my throat before I could stop it. Jason finally spoke. Look, man, I snapped. Don't you and man me right now. His mouth shut. Good. I turned back to Emily. How long? My voice was quiet, but it wasn't calm. She hesitated. Not because she felt guilty, because she was calculating, trying to figure out how much she could get away with. I took another step forward. I said, how long? Emily exhaled, shaking her head. Does it matter? I swear to God. I felt something inside me break. Does it matter? She was standing here, my wife, with my best friend, and she had the audacity to act like this was some minor inconvenience? I could feel Jason shifting uneasily beside her. Maybe he realized how badly she was handling this. Maybe he was finally understanding that this wasn't going to be some quiet, controlled conversation. I clenched my fists so hard my nails dug into my palms. Tell me the truth. Right now. Emily sighed dramatically, like she was bored of this already. And then, with the most casual shrug I've ever seen, she said it. 5 months. 5 months. My stomach dropped. My vision blurred. I had spent 5 months feeling like I was losing my mind, wondering why she was pulling away, blaming myself, trying to fix something that was already broken. And the entire time, Jason was right there. Before I could even process the weight of it, Emily's expression shifted. The indifference disappeared, and in its place was something colder, sharper. Don't act like this is such a shock, she said, crossing her arms. You've been checked out for months. You work late. You come home tired. When's the last time you actually made an effort? I've been lonely. I let out a slow breath through my nose. So your solution was to sleep with my best friend? Emily shrugged. Jason was there for me. You weren't. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She wasn't just justifying it. She was blaming me. Jason finally decided to grow a spine. Look, man. We didn't want you to find out like this. I turned on him so fast he actually took a step back. Oh? How exactly were you planning to tell me, Jason? Silence. That's what I thought. And then, as if this whole nightmare wasn't bad enough, Emily suddenly changed tactics. Her lips trembled. Her eyes glistened. And in an instant, her voice shifted, from cold and sharp to soft and desperate. But you're here now, she whispered. And that's what matters, right? I mean, it's not too late. My head snapped back. What? She stepped closer, reaching out, placing her hand on my chest, the same hand she had just had on him. We can fix this, she whispered. You and me. I blinked. You and me. She nodded. If you just listen to me, if you just give me a chance to explain, we could be okay. I stared at her in disbelief. 5 minutes ago, she had been standing next to him, looking at me like I was an inconvenience, telling me it didn't matter. And now she was what? Begging me to stay? Jason was still standing there, silent, his jaw tight. I looked at Emily, then at Jason, then back at her, and I realized something. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't regret. Emily didn't want to fix this because she loved me. She wanted to fix this because she didn't want to deal with the consequences. Something in me finally snapped. I grabbed Emily's wrist, the one she had just placed on my chest, and took a step back, dropping her hand like it disgusted me. Fix this, I repeated, my voice low, shaking with something I wasn't even sure I could control. You think we can just hit undo on this? Emily's face twisted, like she hadn't expected that reaction, like she actually thought I'd be stupid enough to take her back just because she started crying. Jason still hadn't moved. His silence was louder than anything. He wasn't defending himself, wasn't even pretending to apologize. He was just waiting, like he knew this was beyond saving and he just had to ride it out. That's when I realized he had never planned on telling me. Neither of them had. Jason wasn't just a mistake. He was a backup plan. My stomach turned. I swallowed the bile rising in my throat and took another step back. Emily's expression changed again, like she sensed me pulling away, like she knew I was slipping through her fingers. The fake tears ramped up. Her breathing became uneven. I had seen this performance before. Not like this, of course. But I knew how she worked. Emily didn't like losing. And right now, she was losing. Please, she whispered, reaching for me again. I know this looks bad. But I laughed. Couldn't stop it. A broken, humorless sound ripped out of me before I could even think. Looks bad, I repeated. Emily, I walked in on you with my best friend. It doesn't just look bad. It's bad. She swallowed hard, eyes darting between me and Jason like she was trying to calculate her next move. Jason finally spoke. Look, man. I turned on him so fast he shut his mouth. Don't say a word. His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Emily, on the other hand, wasn't done. She never knew when to stop. I made a mistake, she said, her voice still trembling, still playing the poor me act. But it's not like I don't love you. I felt my fingers curl into fists. You don't get to say that to me. Not anymore. She flinched, like I had actually hit her. Good. Maybe, for once, she could feel something close to what I was feeling right now. Jason shifted his weight. I could tell he wanted to leave, to escape this disaster before it got worse. He always was a coward when things got tough. I turned to him. You got something to say? He hesitated. And then, instead of apologizing, instead of acting like a friend, he had the audacity to say, I didn't plan for this to happen. My vision blurred again. My blood felt like it was boiling. You didn't plan? I repeated. My voice was so calm it scared me. Jason took a step back. It just happened. It just happened. I wanted to break something. Instead, I exhaled sharply and turned back to Emily. You said 5 months. She nodded hesitantly. I let out a slow, humorless breath. That means the entire time you were pulling away from me, dodging me, making excuses. You were running to him. Emily didn't answer. She didn't have to. I turned to Jason. How many times have you been in my house while I wasn't here? His lips pressed into a tight line. He didn't answer either. That was answer enough. I nodded. Right? Emily must have realized in that moment that I was done. That this wasn't going to end with some dramatic argument where I stormed out only to come crawling back later. That there was no damage control. So she did something I never expected. She changed her target. Her tears stopped instantly. Her expression hardened. And suddenly, she wasn't begging me anymore. She was turning on Jason. You're just going to let him talk to you like that? She snapped, whirling on him. After everything? Jason's brows pulled together. Emily, you said you'd handle this? She hissed, her voice sharp and venomous. So do something. Jason stared at her like he was just now realizing what kind of person she really was. My stomach twisted. I had loved this woman. I had spent 8 years of my life believing she was good, believing she was mine. And now, in real time, I was watching her turn into someone I didn't recognize. Jason cleared his throat. He looked at me, his expression uncomfortable. Look, man, maybe we should just... Emily scoffed. Pathetic, she muttered under her breath. Jason's head snapped toward her. Something shifted in his face. Like, for the first time, he understood. She had never cared about either of us. She had only ever cared about herself. For the first time that night, I felt something that wasn't rage, betrayal, or devastation. I felt relief, because now I knew for certain. There was nothing left to save. Emily must have felt the shift in the air because her expression twisted into something ugly. She wasn't in control anymore. She could feel it slipping. And Emily? She hated losing. Jason still looked like he was processing the fact that she had just thrown him under the bus. But I wasn't interested in his realization. He could deal with his mess on his own time. I took a step back, running a hand down my face, trying to clear the static in my head. My heart was still hammering, but the initial explosion of rage had burned out, leaving something colder in its place. Something final. I met Emily's gaze. We're done. She blinked, like she couldn't believe I'd actually said it. Wait. No, my voice was steady now, sharper than before. This? It's over. Jason exhaled like he had been holding his breath. Maybe he thought this was his out, that he and Emily could slink away and pretend this never happened. But Emily wasn't done fighting. She lunged forward and grabbed my arm. You're not thinking, she said quickly. You're angry. And I get that, but we can talk about this. I ripped my arm out of her grasp. Talk. I let out a dry, humorless laugh. Emily, you just spent the last 5 months screwing my best friend behind my back. What the hell is left to talk about? Her eyes darted to Jason. He was still standing there, stiff and silent, like he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. I almost laughed again. This idiot had destroyed our friendship for her. And now she was realizing that he was nothing more than a warm body, a backup plan. Emily must have realized she wasn't going to win this round with fake tears or gaslighting, because her whole demeanor shifted. She rolled her eyes. God, you're so dramatic, she muttered. I stared at her, genuinely stunned. Dramatic. She crossed her arms. Yeah, people cheat. Okay? It happens. It's not the end of the world. I took a slow breath, trying to keep my temper in check. People cheat, I repeated. She shrugged. Yeah, and honestly, If you had been paying more attention, maybe I wouldn't have needed to go to Jason. Jason's head snapped toward her so fast I thought he might get whiplash. You needed to? He asked, his voice flat. Emily realized her mistake too late. Wait, that's not what I meant. But Jason was already backing up, shaking his head. Wow. He let out a sharp, bitter laugh. So that's how it is? Emily turned to him, panicked now. You know that's not what I meant, baby. Baby. I actually felt my stomach turn. Jason took another step back, like he had just been slapped across the face. Yeah, he muttered. I'm out. He turned and walked out of the bedroom, heading for the front door. Emily spun back to me, her breath coming in quick, uneven bursts. Wait, she whispered, reaching for me again. Wait, don't. I stepped away. Don't touch me. Her hands dropped to her sides. She was losing everything. Jason was already halfway out the door, his footsteps heavy and quick. He didn't say another word, didn't apologize, didn't look back, just left. I turned away from Emily and walked toward the closet, grabbing a duffel bag and yanking it open. She was suddenly at my side, desperate now. What are you doing? Leaving. She let out a shaky laugh. You're seriously leaving over this? You're actually throwing everything away. I zipped up the bag and slung it over my shoulder. I'm throwing everything away? Emily pressed her lips together, her eyes flashing with frustration. You know what I mean. We've been together for years. You're just gonna walk away. I exhaled, shaking my head. You walked away first, Emily. You just didn't have the guts to tell me. She inhaled sharply, like she had been slapped. I didn't care. I walked out of the bedroom without another word. She followed. So that's it? You're just gonna run? Like a coward. I stopped at the front door, turned to face her one last time. No, I said. I'm walking away, like a man who finally sees you for what you are. And then, before she could say another word, I opened the door and stepped out. Into the night. Into freedom that I walked to my car in a daze. My duffel bag slung over my shoulder. My mind racing so fast I could barely focus. The night air was cold against my skin, but I barely felt it. Everything around me felt distant, muted, like I was moving through a dream I couldn't wake up from. The front door slammed behind me. I knew she was coming before I heard her footsteps. Fast, desperate. Wait! Emily's voice rang out behind me. Just stop for a second. I didn't stop. I yanked open the car door and tossed my bag into the passenger seat, my hands gripping the edge of the frame so hard my knuckles ached. Where are you even gonna go? She demanded, her voice shrill now. You don't have a plan, do you? You're just running away because you don't know what else to do. I exhaled slowly through my nose. Not running. Just done. Emily let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Done? Oh, come on, don't be dramatic. You're gonna cool off. Realize you overreacted, and come crawling back. I turned to face her, leaning against the car. You really believe that? She smirked. I know you. You're not the type to throw away years of marriage over one little mistake. I stared at her for a long time, taking in everything about her. The way she crossed her arms like she was winning, the way she was still trying to manipulate the situation. One little mistake. I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. Emily, you slept with my best friend. For 5 months. She had the audacity to roll her eyes. God, you're so exhausting, she snapped. Do you have any idea how miserable I've been? How lonely? You haven't been there for me. But Jason. I held up a hand. Don't say his name to me. She snapped her mouth shut. For the first time, I saw something real in her eyes. Fear. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing control. She had spent months lying, sneaking around, getting away with it. And now I was the one leaving. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You want to know the worst part? She swallowed, didn't answer. I leaned in, just enough so she couldn't look away. I would have done anything for you. Her breath hitched. I shook my head. And you threw it away for him. For the first time since this nightmare started. She looked shaken. Good. I stepped back, opened the car door, and got in. Emily's expression twisted into something desperate. You can't just leave. I turned the key in the ignition. The engine roared to life. You need me, she blurted. You always have. I laughed. Actually laughed. A deep, bitter sound that felt like it came from somewhere I hadn't reached before. I put the car in reverse and met her gaze one last time. No, Emily, I said. I never needed you.
He chose you.
And that was my mistake. Her face crumpled. Wait. I didn't wait. I hit the gas. And I left. I drove without a destination. The road stretched in front of me, dark and endless. The only sound the steady hum of the engine and my own ragged breathing. My grip on the wheel was too tight, my pulse hammering in my ears. It wasn't just anger anymore. It wasn't just betrayal. It was something worse. Emptiness. I had spent years of my life loving a woman who never really loved me back. Years. And now, I had nothing. No wife. No best friend. No home to go back to. I should have felt free. I should have felt relief. But all I felt was hollow. I pulled into an empty gas station parking lot, cut the engine, and just sat there. My hands were shaking. My chest was tight. I leaned my head back against the seat, staring at the ceiling, trying to breathe through it. 5 months. 5 months of lies. 5 months of coming home to a woman who looked me in the eyes and pretended everything was fine. 5 months of Jason, the guy who knew every secret I had, the guy who had been in my life since we were kids, sneaking behind my back with her. A sharp laugh burst from my throat, but there was nothing funny about it. I rubbed a hand down my face, exhaling hard. I needed to think. Where was I even supposed to go? A hotel? My parents' house? Sleeping in my car felt like an option at this point. I reached for my phone, hesitating before unlocking it. I didn't even want to look at my messages. The moment I did, I knew I'd see her. Emily. Maybe Jason, too, if he had the balls to text me. I wasn't ready for that yet. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my brother. It rang twice before he picked up. Yo! I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Silence. Hello? His voice sharpened. You good? I swallowed hard. No. That was all it took. Where are you? I glanced around. Some gas station off the highway. I don't even know, man. You been drinking? No. Good. Stay there. I'm coming to get you. I exhaled slowly. You don't have to. Shut up. I'm coming. And just like that, the call ended. I let my phone drop into my lap and stared out at the empty parking lot. For the first time since walking into that bedroom, I felt something that almost resembled relief. I sat in that parking lot for what felt like hours, but it was probably no more than 20 minutes. Just me, the cold night air seeping in through the cracked window, and the weight of everything. I replayed it over and over. The look on Emily's face when she realized she had lost control. The moment Jason understood he was nothing more than a convenient distraction to her. The way she shrugged off months of betrayal like it was nothing. I felt sick. My brother's truck pulled into the lot, headlights sweeping over me before he parked next to my car. The engine cut off, and within seconds, the driver's side door slammed shut. Then he was at my window, knocking once. I rolled it down halfway, not trusting myself to speak yet. He took one look at me and sighed. Yeah, you look like shit, he said. I let out a breath that was almost a laugh. Feels about right. Move over. I didn't argue. I slid to the passenger seat, and he got in, adjusting the seat like he was settling in for a long night. Neither of us spoke for a moment. He didn't push, just let the silence stretch. Finally, he exhaled. Tell me. So I did. Every ugly, disgusting detail. The way I knew something had been off for months but ignored it. The way I caught them, the way Emily tried to manipulate me even after she was caught. When I got to the part where she turned on Jason the second she realized she couldn't win, my brother actually let out a low whistle. Damn, he muttered. She really tried to pit you against him right there? I nodded, like I was gonna throw a punch and suddenly forget she was the real problem. He shook his head, disgusted. That's some next-level sociopath shit. Tell me about it. I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees, staring at the dashboard. I feel like an idiot, I admitted. My brother scoffed. You're not the idiot here. They are. I ran a hand down my face. It doesn't change the fact that I spent years with her and didn't see it. That I trusted Jason with everything and... My voice caught, and I had to swallow hard. And he did this. My brother was quiet for a second. Then he sighed. leaning back in his seat. You know what I think? I glanced at him. What? I think some people are just born snakes. Doesn't matter how much history you have with them. Doesn't matter how much trust you put in them. When it comes down to it, they only care about themselves. I didn't answer, because I knew he was right. Emily had never cared about me. Not really. Maybe in the beginning when it was easy. But real love doesn't let you look someone in the eye for 5 months while sleeping with his best friend. And Jason, he had been my brother. Or at least I thought he had been. But when it came down to it, he had seen an opportunity and taken it, loyalty be damned. It was never about me. It was always about them. My brother stretched, cracking his neck. So, what's next? I stared out at the road. Divorce. The word felt foreign in my mouth, but it came easier than I expected. And I don't just mean papers. I'm done with all of it. The house, the memories, Jason, everything. My brother nodded approvingly. Good. But first, you're crashing at my place. I exhaled. You don't have to. Shut up, he said, grinning. You're crashing at my place. You're drinking my beer. And then, we figure out how to make sure Emily gets nothing. For the first time all night, I actually smiled. Now that, I said, sounds like a plan. My brother's place was exactly what I needed. A complete reset. No reminders of Emily. No shared furniture. No scent of her perfume lingering in the sheets. Just space. I spent the first night drinking, staring at the ceiling, and replaying everything in my head. By the next morning, I had made a decision. Emily wasn't just going to get a divorce. She was going to get nothing. I wasn't going to be one of those guys who let their cheating wife walk away with half of everything. I had built my life from the ground up. My name was on everything, the house, the car, our accounts. Emily had worked, sure, but she had lived comfortably off what I provided. And Jason, he had spent years borrowing money from me, crashing on my couch whenever life got too hard. Not anymore. I sat at my brother's kitchen table, sipping black coffee while he scrolled through his phone. You need a lawyer, he said. I nodded. I already know who to call. He smirked. Damn right you do. I had a friend. A real friend. Not a backstabbing coward like Jason, who specialized in divorce law. And I knew exactly how this was going to go down. Emily was going to fight. She was going to cry, manipulate, and try to make herself look like the victim. She might even go after money, the house, anything she thought she was entitled to. But I had proof. I had the truth. I wasn't going to play fair. I was going to win. That afternoon, I called the lawyer. We met the next day. He listened carefully, took notes, and then sat back with a knowing look. You want to play this smart? He asked. Yeah. Then let her dig her own grave. I raised an eyebrow. Meaning don't tell her you're filing. Not yet. Act normal. Let her think she's still in control. She'll say things over text, over the phone, things you can use. The more rope you give her, the tighter the noose gets. I exhaled. He was right. Emily was impulsive. She always had been. If I played my cards right, she wouldn't just lose. She'd destroy herself. I shook his hand. Let's do it. And just like that, the real fight began. The real fight started before Emily even knew she was in one. I followed my lawyer's advice. I waited. I let her believe I was still processing, still lost, still unsure of what to do. And in that time, I collected everything. Screenshots, bank statements, messages. I went back through old credit card bills and found so many things that didn't add up. Charges on nights when I was working late, hotel stays, expensive dinners. She never even tried to cover her tracks. She thought I was too blind to see it. And Jason, he had been borrowing money from me while sleeping with my wife. I made sure my lawyer had all of it. Then, when everything was lined up perfectly, I let Emily know. I texted her first. Simple. Cold. We need to talk. She responded within seconds. Finally. I've been waiting for you to come to your senses. I smirked. She had no idea. We met at a neutral place, a quiet coffee shop. Public enough that she wouldn't cause a scene. I got there first and sat near the back. She walked in 10 minutes later, sunglasses on, looking annoyed. She sat down across from me, arms crossed. You look like shit, she said. I sipped my coffee. You look like someone who's about to lose everything. She blinked. Excuse me? I leaned forward. I know everything, Emily. Every lie. Every charge on my card. Every little secret you thought I'd never find out. Her expression barely flickered. She was still in control. Or at least she thought she was. So what? She said, shrugging. You're divorcing me? Fine. But don't expect it to be easy. I chuckled. Oh, I expect it to be very easy. I pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. She didn't touch it. What's this? Proof. Of everything. Infidelity. Financial misconduct. Enough to make sure you walk away with nothing. Her smirk wavered. You're bluffing. I leaned back. Try me. She grabbed the folder, flipping through the pages. I watched as her face changed. The confidence drained. Her jaw tightened. Then she snapped it shut and looked up, her eyes burning. You bastard, she hissed. That's rich, I said, sipping my coffee. Coming from you. Emily took a slow breath. I could see her mind racing, trying to figure out her next move. Then she smiled. A slow, dangerous smile. You think this is over? She said. You think you've won? I met her gaze. Calm. Unshaken. It was over the second you chose him. And yeah, Emily, I've already won. For the first time, she looked scared. And for the first time, I felt free. Emily always thought she was the smartest person in the room. Always thought she could talk her way out of anything. Twist reality until it bent in her favor. But when she looked at that folder, when she realized I had everything, I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. Panic. She slammed the folder shut, shoving it back toward me like she could reject reality if she just refused to hold it in her hands. This is ridiculous, she scoffed, but her voice wasn't as steady as before. You actually think this is enough to ruin me? I smiled. I don't think, Emily. I know. She inhaled sharply, like she was about to argue, but I wasn't interested in hearing her excuses. You should also know, I said, leaning forward slightly, that I've already filed. You'll be served soon. My lawyer's handling everything, so don't even bother trying to call me. Her mouth opened, then closed. She was calculating, trying to figure out what she had left, what leverage she could still use. I decided to make it easy for her. You won't get a cent from me, I continued. I made sure of that. And Jason, you better hope he's willing to pick up the pieces, because you're going to need someone to help you when you realize you've lost everything. She flinched. That was the moment it finally hit her. Jason wasn't going to save her. He was a coward, a man who ran when things got tough. And now that he knew she was capable of betraying the person closest to her, he wouldn't trust her either. She had played both sides, and she had lost. You're making a mistake, she whispered, eyes shining with something desperate. You don't have to do this. I tilted my head. Funny. I remember begging you for months to just be honest with me, to tell me what was wrong. And you know what you did. Her lips parted, but I didn't let her speak. You lied. You looked me in the eye every day and lied. So tell me, Emily, why the hell would I listen to you now? Her expression crumbled, and for a split second I thought I saw real regret. But it was too late. I stood up, sliding the folder back into my bag. We're done here. She shot up after me, reaching out, but I was already moving. Wait, she called. Please, just. I turned back one last time, and this time I was the one who shrugged. Does it matter? I said. Her breath caught. Then I walked away, out of the cafe, out of her life. For months, Emily had avoided intimacy, pushing me away, making me feel like I was the problem. But now she was the one crying and begging for my attention. And I didn't even look back.